The alien queen lost her daughters years ago. Until a human brought, the galaxy was vast and unforgiving, filled with countless stars, planets, and civilizations, yet there were few as powerful and mysterious as Thalvoria. From orbit, it gleamed like a jewel in the darkness, its crystal cities reflecting the light of twin suns. But beneath its shining towers and elegant spires lay a sorrow that had haunted its ruler for decades. The alien queen, known throughout the stars as Selvarra, had lost her twin daughters years ago. They were more than her children, they were the future of her empire. Yet, during a violent raid on the outer colonies, the children had vanished without a trace. Despite sending her fleet in every direction and issuing galaxy-wide alerts, no one had found them. The queen's heart carried the weight of that absence every day, a silent ache that no amount of power or authority could soothe. In her private chambers, Selvarra often stared out across her domain. Her silvery eyes reflected not just the beauty of her empire, but the emptiness she felt within. Courtiers and advisors whispered about her decline, worried that grief would consume even the mightiest ruler. But Selvarra was careful to hide her sorrow from public view. When she addressed her people or commanded her fleet, she remained composed, regal, and untouchable. Only in her solitude did the layers of pain show. In those moments, she would softly murmur the names of her daughters, imagining their laughter, their tiny hands, their bright curiosity. Those memories were the only comfort she had left. Far from Thalvoria, in the quiet reaches of human space, a young explorer named Elias adjusted the sensors of his small starship. He had grown up hearing stories of lost civilizations, abandoned ships, and unexplored sectors of the galaxy. His life had always been about discovery, about venturing where few dared to go. It was in one of these quiet, routine explorations that he encountered something extraordinary. A faint distress signal, unlike any he had ever seen, appeared on his scanner. It was not a human transmission. Its energy signature was irregular and almost organic, pulsing with a rhythm that seemed strangely alive. Elias felt an inexplicable pull toward it, as if the signal itself was calling to him. Curiosity and instinct drove him to plot a course to the source. The journey would take him to the edge of the Andromeda Rift, a region of space where few ships dared to go. Legends told of ships disappearing forever in its swirling storms, of strange cosmic phenomena that could tear a vessel apart. But Elias felt no fear. He had faced dangerous missions before, but something about this signal was different. It carried not just a call for help, but a deep emotional resonance. It was as if whoever, or whatever, was sending it wanted to be found. After several days navigating through asteroid fields and gravitational anomalies, Elias finally located the source. It was a derelict starship, drifting silently in the void. The hull was battered, scarred by what seemed to be years of neglect and attacks. Yet despite its state, the signal continued to pulse insistently. Elias docked carefully, the ship's automated doors groaning as they opened. The interior was dark, dusty, and eerily silent. For a moment he wondered if the signal had been a trap, a lure for unsuspecting travelers. But the feeling of something vital waiting for him was too strong to ignore. He moved cautiously through the corridors, his flashlight cutting through the gloom. That's when he saw them. Two small figures huddled in the corner of a storage bay, trembling and wide-eyed. They were children no older than 10, with delicate alien features. Their skin had a subtle luminescence, and their hair shimmered like spun silver. Their eyes, large and bright, reflected both fear and intelligence far beyond their years. They were obviously the source of the signal, but the reality of finding them left Elias momentarily speechless. The distress he had felt through the transmission now became tangible. These children had survived something unimaginable. "Hello," he said gently, keeping his voice calm and soothing. "I'm here to help, you're safe now." He approached slowly, careful not to startle them. The children exchanged a glance, and the older of the two stepped forward slightly, as if testing his intentions. Her small voice trembled. Are you real?" she asked. The innocence in her tone was almost heartbreaking, and Elias nodded reassuringly. "Yes, I'm real. My name is Elias. I'm going to help you." It took some time, but eventually the children warmed to him. They explained, in halting words and gestures, that they had been separated from their home planet during an attack. They had survived by hiding in the derelict ship, scavenging what little they could find, always afraid of being discovered by those who had taken them away. Their resilience impressed Elias. Despite their small size, they carried an air of quiet strength. He could sense that these were no ordinary children. There was a spark in them, something innate that spoke of a lineage far greater than his own understanding. As he prepared to take them aboard his ship, Elias noticed faint traces of energy around them. Tiny pulses that responded to his proximity, almost as if the children's bodies were naturally attuned to the environment of the ship. He had read about alien species with latent abilities, but this felt different, more powerful, more innate. It was clear to him that their survival had not been a matter of luck alone. They possessed something extraordinary. He resolved to protect them at all costs, knowing that returning them to their home could change the course of events across the galaxy. With the children safely aboard, Elias began the journey back to human space, aware that his path would not be easy. The galaxy was not kind to travelers carrying valuable or important passengers. He would have to navigate regions patrolled by pirates, mercenaries, and hostile factions. Yet, despite the looming danger, he felt a sense of purpose he had never experienced before. These children were not just lost. They were a living link to a civilization he had only ever heard about in legends. The thought that they might be the missing daughters of a powerful queen filled him with awe. Back on Thalvoria, the queen sensed a shift in the universe she had long thought permanent. Even from her throne, thousands of light years away, she felt a pulse of recognition, a subtle tug at her consciousness. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but it stirred something deep within her. She rose from her seat, her regal composure unwavering, though her heart raced. "They live," she whispered to herself. Her advisors and courtiers watched in silence, unaware of the personal revelation unfolding before them. The queen did not speak again of her daughters publicly, but her determination renewed. Whoever had found them, whoever had kept them safe, would meet her gratitude and her wrath if anything threatened them. Elias continued his journey, unaware of the gravity of what he carried. The children, slowly regaining their confidence, began to respond to him with trust. They learned quickly, adapting to the controls of the ship and assisting in small ways. One of them could sense the direction of energy signals, guiding him through regions where sensors failed. The other seemed to react instinctively to threats, alerting Elias before dangers became visible. Together, they formed a small but formidable team, united not by species but by the shared goal of survival and reunion. During quiet moments, the children shared fragments of memories from their home. Tales of crystal towers, radiant gardens, and skies that shimmered with colors unknown to human eyes. They spoke of their mother, the queen, with reverence and love, describing lullabies, lessons, and secret games that had shaped their early lives. Elias listened with fascination, realizing that the bond between these children and their mother was far more profound than any political or strategic importance. It was personal, emotional, and utterly compelling. As they approached the outer edge of human-controlled space, Elias reflected on what he had learned in such a short time. Courage and intelligence were not exclusive to humans, but he realized that humanity's greatest strength lay in compassion, initiative, and the willingness to act where others hesitated. He had taken a leap into unknown space on instinct alone, and that leap had led him to these children, who now depended entirely on him. The responsibility weighed heavily, but he did not falter. He was determined to see them safely home, even if it meant defying the dangers of the galaxy. For the first time in decades, the pulse of hope echoed through Thalvoria. Somewhere in the void, human ingenuity had intersected with the lost lineage of the Queen. The universe, vast and indifferent as it often was, had delivered a chance for reunion. The story of the lost daughters was no longer one of sorrow, but of possibility. And as Elias piloted his ship toward the stars that led to Thalvoria, neither he nor the children could know the challenges that awaited them, the forces that would rise against them, or the courage that would be demanded. What they did know, however, was that they had found each other, and that was enough to ignite the spark of destiny. And in that quiet moment, as distant stars blurred past the windows of the ship, the universe seemed to pause, acknowledging the beginning of a journey that would change everything. The journey through the void of space was long and uncertain. Elias piloted his small ship with careful precision, navigating asteroid belts, energy storms, and regions of space where sensors failed to work properly. The alien girls, whom he now understood were sisters, watched the stars with a mixture of fear, curiosity, and awe. They had spent years surviving in isolation, hiding from anyone who might capture them, yet now they were being carried across the galaxy by a human, a species they had only ever heard of in fragmented stories from the few messages broadcast from Thalvoria. Despite their initial wariness, the girls began to trust him. Trust was a fragile thing, but Elias handled it gently, never forcing them, always giving reassurance through words, small gestures, and steady presence. The older sister, whose hair shimmered like silver, introduced herself as Leora. Her twin, shorter and more cautious, was named Sirla. They spoke slowly at first, their language a musical cadence that Elias struggled to fully understand. Yet through repetition, gestures, and careful attention, he began to communicate with them fluently. Leora told him about the day they had disappeared. They had been playing in the palace gardens when the raid began. A fleet of hostile ships attacked their planet's outer colonies. In the chaos, they had been carried off in a smaller vessel by creatures who had thought the children could be used as leverage against the queen. Sirla added little details, how they had hidden in supply rooms, scavenged scraps of food, and slept under panels and crates to avoid detection. Their resourcefulness amazed Elias, but it also brought a deep sense of sorrow. The girls had endured unimaginable fear and loneliness, yet they had survived. As the hours turned into days, Elias noticed other remarkable traits. Both girls emitted faint energy pulses. Sometimes, when Leora looked at the control panel, lights would flicker, as if responding to her attention. Sirla could sense the presence of small objects in the cargo hold, predicting where things had fallen. Elias realized that these were not ordinary children. They were connected to something far greater than themselves. Their royal heritage, he suspected, carried with it innate abilities, subtle powers that the human mind could barely comprehend. He made a decision. If the girls were indeed the daughters of the Thalvorian queen, then returning them safely to their home would require more than skillful piloting. It would require careful strategy, patience, and the willingness to face dangers no one else would confront. The galaxy was not forgiving, and the queen's enemies would recognize an opportunity to interfere. Every system he crossed was potentially hostile. Every sector could harbor mercenaries, bounty hunters, or rival factions seeking advantage. Elias felt the weight of responsibility, but he refused to let fear dictate his actions. On the third day of their journey, the ship's sensors picked up an unusual signature. A patrol of alien vessels was heading straight for them. Elias realized immediately that these were not ordinary scouts. Their formation, their speed, and their silent efficiency indicated professional operatives. Likely, they had been tracking the signal from the derelict ship the girls had been on. He glanced at Leora and Sirla, who both understood the unspoken tension. Leora's eyes brightened with a strange intensity, a mix of fear and determination. Sirla clutched Elias' arm, her small hands surprisingly strong in their grip. Elias acted quickly. He adjusted the ship's course to weave through an asteroid belt, using the dense rocks as natural cover. The patrol followed, but their larger size and slower maneuvering worked to Elias' advantage. The girls watched in awe as he twisted the ship through narrow gaps, occasionally pointing out small adjustments that seemed almost instinctive. Each time the ship narrowly avoided collision, they felt a surge of adrenaline. For the first time in years, the girls experienced a feeling that was not fear alone. It was hope. During a brief calm, Elias used the opportunity to learn more about their abilities. He asked Leora to focus on an object across the room. She did so, and the object shifted slightly, almost imperceptibly. Elias' eyes widened. The children's powers were real and strong. He suspected that the queen had abilities of her own, and these had been inherited. If trained properly, the girls could become formidable beyond imagination. But that would have to wait. For now, survival was their priority. Night fell in the human sense, though space had no true concept of day or night. Elias allowed the girls to rest in the cabin. They curled together on a narrow bunk, drawing comfort from each other's presence. Leora whispered softly to Sirla, recalling the lullabies their mother had sung. The melody seemed to have a faint resonance, almost like a signal that responded to their voices. Elias watched quietly, feeling a connection he could not explain. This was no ordinary mission. It was a chance to witness the living essence of hope, resilience, and humanity in action, even though the girls were not human. The next morning, the danger returned. Scouts had relayed the information about the human carrying the children to multiple systems. Space lanes that were once empty were now patrolled by faster, more advanced vessels. Elias realized that stealth alone would not suffice. He would need to rely on strategy, the girls' abilities, and his own ingenuity. They approached a nebula known for disrupting sensors and communications. The clouds of charged particles would provide temporary cover, but navigating through them was treacherous. One wrong move and the ship could be destroyed. Elias relied on the girl's instincts, Leora sensing energy patterns, Scifi detecting turbulence in the nebula. Together, they moved as a team, each contributing in ways that transcended species. As they emerged from the nebula, Elias allowed himself a moment to reflect. The galaxy often judged humans as fragile, insignificant, and incapable of standing against alien powers. Yet here he was, defying expectations, carrying two of the most important beings in the universe safely across hostile space. And the children, though small and vulnerable, were already demonstrating abilities that could rival entire fleets if properly cultivated. Elias realized that humanity's strength lay not only in technology or numbers, but in courage, adaptability, and compassion. These traits, combined with intelligence, could turn the tide even in the most desperate situations. During one quiet moment, the girls asked about their mother. Leora's voice trembled, carrying both longing and hope. Elias described what little he knew, careful not to overpromise but to inspire confidence. He explained that their mother was powerful, wise, and deeply loving, and that she would never stop searching for them. The children listened, their expressions softening as the image of their mother grew in their minds. They began to believe that they would be reunited. This belief became a kind of energy in itself, strengthening their resolve and subtly amplifying their abilities. Days passed, and the pursuit grew more intense. Advanced ships from unknown factions appeared at unpredictable intervals. Elias had to improvise constantly, using decoys, electronic jammers, and rapid maneuvers. At one point, they were nearly cornered by a squad of heavily armed vessels. Elias' heart pounded as he analyzed every possible escape route. Then, almost instinctively, Leora extended her hands toward the console, and the lights on the dashboard responded to her energy. Shields strengthened, engines surged, and the pursuing ships were temporarily blinded by a sudden electromagnetic pulse. Scifi added her focus, amplifying the effect just enough for them to escape. Elias felt a surge of pride and amazement. The children's abilities were real, powerful, and growing stronger with each passing moment. Finally, after several weeks of tense navigation, they reached a sector near Thalvoria. Elias allowed himself a quiet smile. They were close, but he knew that the final stretch would be the most dangerous. Rival fleets and bounty hunters would be waiting, and the Queen's enemies would not allow the daughters to return without a fight. He briefed the girls, explaining that they needed to stay alert, trust each other, and remain calm under pressure. Leora and Scifi nodded, their expressions determined. They had survived far worse, and now they were almost home. At the same time, across light years, the Queen felt the pull of her daughters, presence growing stronger. It was subtle, like a heartbeat that had suddenly quickened. She did not fully understand it, but she knew instinctively that her children were alive and nearing her reach. Her advisors noticed the change in her demeanor, her eyes sharper, her voice steadier, her movements more purposeful. The Queen had ruled with strength and wisdom, but now her heart added a new dimension to her decisions. Every command, every strategy, every fleet movement was guided not only by duty, but by the unyielding desire to protect her daughters. As Elias prepared for the final approach to Thalvoria's orbital space, he reflected on everything that had transpired. He had discovered courage, resilience, and hope in two children. He had witnessed powers that defied comprehension. And he had come to understand that the universe was not only about survival or conquest, but also about connection, compassion, and the willingness to act when others would hesitate. Elias' heart swelled with a mixture of pride and anticipation. They were almost home, and the reunion with the Queen would mark the beginning of something extraordinary, not just for the children, but for the galaxy itself. The stars stretched endlessly before them, a river of light leading toward destiny. The girls huddled close to Elias, sensing the tension and the promise of what lay ahead. They no longer felt fear alone. There was hope, courage, and trust. And in that quiet but powerful moment, Elias knew that whatever awaited them at Thalvoria, they were ready to face it together. The journey had taught them to survive, to believe, and to act with heart. And now, the final chapter of their long, perilous odyssey was about to begin. The galaxy watched silently as a human ship, carrying two alien children whose lives had once seemed lost forever, approached the orbit of the great crystal planet. Unknown to Elias, unseen eyes from rival factions tracked their every movement, eager to challenge him. Yet the strongest forces in the universe were not weapons or fleets. They were courage, determination, and the unbreakable bond between a protector and those he sought to save. And as the ship edged closer to its destination, the pulse of hope grew brighter, a light in the darkness that promised reunion, justice, and the beginning of a new era for Thalvoria. The stars stretched endlessly as Elias guided his small ship closer to Thalvoria's orbit. The glow of the twin suns reflected off the planet's crystal spires, casting prismatic light across the void. The closer they came, the more real the reunion became. Elias could feel the tension in the cabin. Leora and Syrla sat quietly, their hands tightly gripping the edges of the control panel, eyes wide with anticipation. The sisters had survived years of fear and isolation, and now, for the first time, hope was almost tangible. Yet the galaxy did not yield easily, and their journey was far from over. Unseen by Elias, sensors across the sector picked up the approaching ship. Rival factions who had long coveted power over Thalvoria immediately recognized the significance of the human pilot carrying two alien children. These were not just any children, they were the daughters of the Queen herself. For those who sought to manipulate or control the Empire, this was an opportunity they could not ignore. Within moments, a squadron of heavily armed vessels appeared from hyperspace, forming a blockade between Elias' ship and the planet. Their engines glowed menacingly, and energy weapons charged with deadly intent. Elias' heart raced, but his hands remained steady on the controls. He had faced danger before, but the stakes now were higher than ever. This was no longer about exploration or survival alone. It was about protecting the future of an entire civilization. "Stay calm," he said to the girls, his voice firm but gentle. "Trust me, and we will get through this." Leora and Syrla nodded, their confidence growing not just from Elias' presence, but from the bond they had forged during their long journey. They had learned to act instinctively, and their latent abilities had grown stronger with each passing day. As the blockade vessels advanced, Elias initiated evasive maneuvers. He weaved through asteroids and debris fields, using the environment as cover. The pursuing ships were larger and more powerful, but their size made them less agile. Leora, sensing the energy patterns of the enemy vessels, guided Elias with precise directions, predicting the movements of the blockade in ways no sensor could detect. Syrla focused on maintaining stability within the ship, her hands lightly hovering over consoles and control panels, subtly shifting energy flows to maximize the ship's speed and defense. The first shots rang out in sudden bursts of light. The blockade fired energy blasts, which Elias narrowly avoided. Sparks flew across the ship's exterior as minor hits struck, but the vessel remained intact. The girls' powers activated in tandem, creating small protective fields that absorbed some of the impact and redirected energy away from vital systems. Elias realized that their abilities were growing faster than he had anticipated. They were not just surviving, they were becoming forces to be reckoned with. Despite the chaos, Elias kept communication open, calling out instructions and receiving responses from the girls. Leora and Syrla moved as if in perfect synchronization, a team honed by years of survival and now strengthened by trust. They understood that any misstep could be fatal, yet they moved with confidence, blending instinct and skill. The blockade underestimated the small human ship, assuming that a human could not possibly challenge such powerful alien forces. That assumption would soon prove to be their greatest mistake. As the battle raged, Elias spotted a narrow passage between two massive asteroids. It was a risky maneuver, but it offered the only chance to slip past the blockade and reach the planet's atmosphere. He calculated the trajectory carefully, factoring in the girls, guidance, and their energy pulses. Leora's hands glowed faintly as she focused, guiding the ship through the field with uncanny precision. Sirla reinforced the energy shields, keeping the ship stable as it hurtled toward the opening. The blockade fired relentlessly, energy beams streaking through space in bright arcs. Elia's ship twisted and turned, narrowly avoiding each attack. At the critical moment, the ship passed through the gap, and the blockade's larger vessels struggled to follow. Elia's heart pounded with adrenaline, but he did not allow fear to control him. He had made it through the first phase, but the final challenge awaited, reaching the Queen herself. As they descended toward Thalvoria's atmosphere, Elias felt a sudden shift in energy. It was subtle but unmistakable, a pull that seemed to come from the planet itself. The girls reacted instantly, their powers flaring in response. Light shimmered around the cabin, reflecting off the control panels and creating an almost ethereal glow. Elias realized that the planet, or perhaps the Queen herself, was somehow responding to their approach. The connection between mother and daughters was undeniable, an invisible bond that spanned light years. The Queen had been waiting. From her throne room, she sensed the arrival of her children, guided by a human who had risked everything to bring them home. Her eyes, silver and radiant, glimmered with both hope and intensity. She could feel their presence, faint but growing stronger with each passing moment. The grief that had haunted her for decades was slowly giving way to anticipation and resolve. Every moment of waiting, every decision she had made led to this point. She rose from her throne, her regal form moving with power and grace, ready to intervene if necessary. Elias navigated the ship through the upper atmosphere, careful to avoid detection by automated defense systems that might mistake them for intruders. The girls leaned forward, their senses attuned to every movement, every pulse of energy around them. They could feel the proximity of their mother, a warmth and familiarity that resonated deep within them. Their fears, so long cultivated by years of hiding and survival, began to fade. For the first time in years, they felt a sense of safety, even amidst the danger that still surrounded them. Suddenly, the blockade ships reappeared, having recovered from their failed pursuit. They were determined to prevent the children from reaching the Queen. Elias' mind raced, calculating every possible maneuver. He could not outgun them, but he could outthink them. Using the girls' abilities, he created a series of energy distortions and decoys, confusing the enemy sensors and causing the ships to misfire. Leora's focus guided the distortions, while Sirla amplified their effect, creating a temporary shield that allowed the human ship to slip past. The combination of human ingenuity and alien heritage proved to be a force greater than the blockade anticipated. As they neared the landing platform, Elias received a transmission, a single, clear message from the Queen herself. Her voice was calm, commanding, and filled with the unmistakable authority of a ruler who had endured great loss. "Bring them to me," she said. "No harm will come to them while I am here." The words carried reassurance and power, a promise that reinforced the hope the girls had felt. Leora and Sirla exchanged a glance, their faces lighting up with relief. They had almost reached home. The landing was tense but successful. The ship touched down on the crystal surface of Thalvoria with a smooth glide, guided by Elia's steady hands. The girls stepped out first, their small feet leaving faint impressions on the shining ground. The light reflected off their hair and skin, creating a radiant glow that caught the attention of every observer. Soldiers and advisors who had witnessed the landing were struck silent. The Queen's daughters, long thought lost, had returned, escorted by a human. The magnitude of the moment was almost impossible to comprehend. Finally, the Queen appeared before them. Her presence was awe-inspiring, a figure of authority and beauty that seemed to command the very air around her. Leora and Sirla ran forward, their small forms moving with instinctive recognition. The Queen bent down, enveloping them in a protective embrace. Tears flowed freely, the emotion of years of loss and longing finally finding release. Elias watched from a short distance, feeling a mixture of pride and humility. He had done what many thought impossible. He had returned the lost children to their mother. Even as the Queen held her daughters, the surrounding crowd remained silent, witnessing a moment of profound significance. The blockade vessels, seeing the overwhelming power and presence of the Queen, hesitated and then retreated. They understood, perhaps too late, that the human who had guided the children through danger had not only defied them, but also gained the favor of one of the most powerful rulers in the galaxy. Elias realized that the universe had shifted in subtle but permanent ways. Human courage and determination had proven to be forces that even advanced alien powers could not ignore. The Queen finally released the girls, holding them at arm's length to look into their faces. "You are safe now," she whispered, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "You are home." Leora and Sirla clung to her, their small hands grasping her robes, their eyes wide with awe and relief. The reunion was complete, yet the implications were only beginning to unfold. The girls' abilities, their survival, and the human who had brought them home represented a new chapter for Thalvoria and the galaxy at large. Elias approached cautiously. The Queen looked at him with gratitude and intensity, her silver eyes studying his expression. "You have done what no one else could," she said. "You have returned my children safely. For that I owe you my respect and trust." Elias bowed, humbled by the weight of her words. He had acted out of instinct and compassion, but the recognition from one of the greatest rulers in the galaxy was overwhelming. As night fell on Thalvoria, the crystal towers reflecting the twin suns, fading light, Elias, the children, and the Queen stood together. The past years of grief and uncertainty had culminated in this moment, a moment that promised hope, renewal, and the beginning of something extraordinary. The girls, once lost and alone, now had a mother to guide them and a human who had proven the strength of courage and heart. The Queen, long burdened by sorrow, finally felt the joy of reunion and the assurance that her daughters were not only alive but strong. The galaxy, silent witness to these events, seemed to acknowledge the shift. Humanity had proven itself again, not through weapons or conquest, but through bravery, compassion, and the courage to act when it mattered most. Elias had faced impossible odds and had prevailed. And the girls, long thought lost, now had the chance to reclaim their place in the universe, guided by their mother and the human who had risked everything for them. The future of Thalvoria was no longer just a matter of politics or power. It was now a story of hope, courage, and the unbreakable bonds of family. And for Elias, the journey had only just begun. He had delivered the children home, but the universe had more challenges ahead, more mysteries to uncover, and more tests of character to face. Yet for now, as he stood quietly watching the reunion, he allowed himself to feel a sense of fulfillment and pride. He had witnessed and participated in something truly extraordinary, a story that would resonate across the stars for generations to come. The crystal towers of Thalvoria gleamed like beacons under the light of the twin suns, reflecting colors that no human eyes had ever seen. Before, the planet was breathtaking, a living testament to the grandeur of the alien civilization that ruled it. Yet beneath this beauty, the atmosphere was tense. Word of the daughter's return had spread quickly, and not everyone in the galaxy viewed their safe return with joy. Rival factions, those who had long sought to exploit Thalvoria's wealth and influence, were already moving to strike. They had witnessed a human pilot navigate through dangers that many thought insurmountable, escorting the lost children of the Queen. Now emboldened by desperation, they intended to challenge the planet itself. Elias had barely rested since the landing. He stayed close to Leora and Sirla, helping them adjust to their surroundings and regain some sense of normalcy. The sisters were fascinated and cautious at the same time, exploring the palace grounds while keeping an instinctive eye on any signs of danger. Their powers, latent and subtle during their flight through space, began to awaken more fully in the presence of their home planet. Leora's energy pulses were now strong enough to influence minor systems within the palace, and Sirla could sense hidden pathways and structural weaknesses with uncanny precision. Elias observed quietly, understanding that these abilities were a gift, a heritage that could change the balance of power in the galaxy if properly guided. Despite the momentary calm, the Queen remained vigilant. She convened her advisors in the grand hall, her silver eyes sharp and unwavering. "The daughters are safe," she declared, her voice echoing through the chamber. "But we must be prepared. Those who would exploit this moment will not wait. We will protect them, and we will ensure that no threat can reach our people again." Her words carried authority and conviction, leaving no room for doubt. Her court, though initially stunned by the humans' arrival and the children's return, quickly understood the gravity of the situation. They would need to act with strategy, not just power. Outside the palace, the air shimmered with tension. Scouts reported movement at the edges of Thalvoria's orbit. A fleet of mercenaries, equipped with advanced weapons and piloted by ruthless commanders, was approaching. Their mission was clear: capture the children or eliminate anyone who stood in their way. Elias felt the familiar rush of adrenaline, tempered by careful calculation. He was no stranger to danger, but this was unlike anything he had faced. This was a direct threat not only to the children but to an entire civilization, and failure was not an option. The first wave of attackers emerged from hyperspace with devastating precision. Energy blasts illuminated the skies, striking defensive towers and testing the palace's protective shields. The Queen's forces responded immediately, activating automated defenses and deploying her elite fleet. Elias moved quickly, guiding the children to a secure observation deck where they could stay safe while remaining close enough to sense the unfolding battle. He watched, awed, as the Queen coordinated her forces with remarkable skill. Every command she gave was met with flawless execution, every movement of her fleet calculated to perfection. Yet even her formidable forces struggled against the mercenaries' unpredictability. As the battle intensified, the girls began to sense their own potential more clearly. Leora, standing beside Elias, extended her hands unconsciously, and the energy surrounding her coalesced into a shimmering field that disrupted enemy targeting systems. Beams that would have struck the palace shields veered away, faltering mid-flight. Scifi, concentrating with intense focus, extended her awareness toward the attackers' movements, predicting their approach and signaling Elias to adjust defensive measures. Together, their abilities created a synergy that no human or alien technology alone could match. The Queen noticed immediately. Her eyes widened in recognition as she sensed the growing power of her daughters. She had known that they were special, but seeing them actively influence the battle confirmed the depth of their heritage. With renewed determination, she commanded her flagship to engage the attackers directly, drawing attention away from the palace and toward a controlled confrontation. The Queen understood that human ingenuity, combined with the innate abilities of her daughters, created a unique advantage that could turn the tide of the conflict. Elias guided the children carefully, reminding them to focus and remain aware of their surroundings. Leora's powers continued to grow, now capable of creating small protective shields that extended over parts of the palace walls. Scifi's perceptive skills allowed them to anticipate attacks, avoiding harm while maximizing the effectiveness of their interventions. The attackers, caught off guard by the unexpected resistance, faltered in their assault. Their once confident formations began to break apart as they struggled against forces they had not anticipated. The intelligence, courage, and combined abilities of a human and two alien children. The tide of battle shifted rapidly. The mercenaries, realizing that brute force would not suffice, attempted to escalate their strategy, sending faster, more agile ships to flank the defenders. Elias responded instinctively, guiding the children through tactical maneuvers that allowed them to anticipate enemy movements. Leora focused on projecting her energy outward, creating a series of disruptive pulses that confused enemy targeting systems. Scifi, sensing subtle shifts in the attacker's formation, directed defensive measures with near-perfect timing. The synergy between human strategy and alien heritage was now undeniable. Meanwhile, the Queen advanced, her flagship moving through the battlefield with elegance and precision. She deployed her elite forces in calculated waves, targeting key enemy positions while avoiding unnecessary collateral damage. Her eyes, ever watchful, occasionally glanced toward the observation deck where Elias and the children were located. She saw their bravery and their potential, recognizing that their courage had already contributed significantly to the defense. The bond between human and alien, mentor and students, had become a crucial element in the struggle for survival. In a decisive moment, Elias noticed a critical weakness in the enemy formation. One of the larger mercenary ships, designed for heavy assault, had become isolated from its protective units. With the children's assistance, he executed a daring maneuver. Leora extended her energy outward, temporarily disrupting the ship's power systems, while Scifi guided the flow of energy to prevent collateral damage. Elias piloted the ship directly toward the target, using the precise timing and energy manipulation to disable the vessel completely. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The enemy formation began to crumble, their confidence shattered by the unexpected combination of skill, courage, and innate power. As the battle drew to a close, the surviving mercenaries retreated. Their losses were significant, and they had learned an invaluable lesson. The daughters of the queen were no ordinary children, and the human who had guided them was not to be underestimated. The queen surveyed the battlefield, satisfied that the immediate threat had been neutralized. She turned to Elias, her expression a mixture of gratitude, admiration, and respect. "You have done more than deliver my children," she said. "You have shown what courage, intelligence, and loyalty can achieve. You have earned a place of honor here, and you will always have my trust." Elias bowed respectfully, humbled by her words. The girls, exhausted but exhilarated, approached their mother. Their powers, still pulsing faintly around them, seemed to resonate with her presence. Leora and Sirla felt a sense of completeness, a bond that had been missing for years now restored. The queen embraced them once more, her silver eyes shimmering with tears of relief and joy. "You are safe," she whispered, her voice steady yet filled with emotion, "and we will ensure that nothing ever threatens you again." The children clung to her, feeling the warmth, protection, and love that had been absent for so long. Elias stood quietly nearby, observing the reunion. The moment was profound, yet he understood that it marked not the end, but the beginning of a new chapter. The girls' powers would need guidance, training, and understanding. The galaxy would continue to pose threats, and the Queen's reign, though strengthened, would face challenges that required vigilance and wisdom. Yet in this moment, humanity's role was clear. Courage, compassion, and the willingness to act could influence events in ways that no technology or weapon could replicate. As night fell on Thalvoria, the crystal towers reflected the fading light, shimmering like a promise of hope. The queen gathered her daughters and Elias in a private chamber, where plans for the future were discussed. She explained the importance of preparing the girls for their roles as heirs to the throne, teaching them not only about leadership and diplomacy, but also about harnessing their unique abilities responsibly. Elias listened attentively, understanding that his mission had evolved. He would now serve as mentor, guide, and protector, helping the children grow into their potential while navigating the complexities of the galaxy. Outside, the remnants of the battlefield were being cleared. Soldiers and advisors worked efficiently, their movements coordinated and precise, restoring order to the palace grounds. The queen walked among them briefly, her presence commanding yet reassuring. The people of Thalvoria had witnessed the return of the lost daughters and the human who had made it possible. Stories of courage, ingenuity, and heroism spread quickly, inspiring confidence and loyalty among the populace. The future, once uncertain, now seemed filled with possibility. The girls, now resting in a secure chamber, reflected on the journey they had undertaken. Their fear, loneliness, and uncertainty had been replaced by trust, confidence, and hope. They understood that their powers were not just gifts but responsibilities, tools to protect their people and the galaxy at large. Elias watched over them, quietly proud of their growth and resilience. Together, they had faced dangers that many adults could not endure, and they had prevailed. The bond between human and alien had proven its strength, a connection that transcended species, culture, and expectation. As the twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting a final glow across the crystal landscape, the queen stood in the balcony of her palace, gazing at the stars. She felt a sense of balance restored, a harmony that had been missing for decades. Her daughters were safe, their potential recognized and nurtured, and the human who had brought them home had demonstrated the very best of his species. She knew that the galaxy would continue to challenge them, but she also knew that together they could overcome anything. Hope, courage, and determination had prevailed, and the future of Thalvoria was brighter than it had been in years. The queen turned to Elias and nodded, a silent acknowledgement of gratitude, respect, and trust. The journey was not over, but a new era had begun. Humanity had proven itself once again, not through conquest, but through courage, intelligence, and the willingness to act when it mattered most. The children, now reunited with their mother, would grow to become powerful leaders, guided by wisdom, experience, and the lessons learned from survival and adversity. And Elias, the human who had dared to reach across the stars, would remain by their side, a symbol of hope and heroism in a galaxy that had long underestimated the potential of a single determined individual. The dawn over Thalvoria brought a soft glow across the crystal spires, bathing the palace in colors that shifted like liquid rainbows. Inside the palace, the atmosphere was tense yet charged with anticipation. The queen's daughters had returned, their powers awakening more fully each day, and the galaxy had not forgotten. Rival factions still lingered at the edges of controlled space, wary of the human who had defied them and the children who possessed abilities beyond imagination. Ilias knew that their safety depended not only on the palace's defenses, but on preparation, foresight, and the courage of those within. The queen summoned her daughters and Ilias to the central chamber. The room was enormous, its high ceilings reflecting light across polished floors and intricate walls of crystal. The children, though still small, had grown in confidence since their arrival. Leora's silver hair shimmered with energy, while Sirla's perceptive eyes glimmered with a quiet intensity. The queen's voice, calm yet commanding, filled the room. "You have been tested by circumstances beyond your years," she said. "Now it is time to understand your place in our world, your responsibilities, and your potential." Ilias observed closely as the queen guided them through exercises designed to enhance their abilities. Leora practiced controlling energy fields, learning to extend them outward while maintaining focus. Sirla honed her perception skills, sensing changes in the environment and predicting movements with precision. Ilias assisted, offering strategies drawn from his own experience navigating dangers, teaching the girls how to combine instinct with planning. Their progress was remarkable. Even the queen, wise and powerful, nodded in approval as she witnessed their growth. The training was interrupted by a sudden alert. The palace sensors had detected a fleet approaching the planet at high speed. Ilias' heart sank, but he did not panic. "We need to act quickly," he said. The queen's eyes narrowed. She had anticipated that news of the daughter's return would provoke challenges. "Prepare the defenses," she commanded. "We will not allow them to harm our people or our children." Soldiers moved with efficiency, deploying energy shields, positioning ships in strategic formations, and readying advanced weaponry. The palace, a combination of technological brilliance and natural beauty, became a fortress poised for battle. The approaching fleet was led by a commander known for ruthless tactics and clever strategy. His ships, sleek and heavily armed, advanced in formation, expecting an easy victory. What they did not anticipate was the presence of Ilias, the daughters, and the queen herself. The first wave of attackers was met with calculated resistance. Energy blasts intercepted missiles, defensive drones activated, and automated turrets fired with precision. Yet the human and the children remained the unexpected variable, the element that could turn the tide in a way no conventional strategy could predict. Leora and Sirla, now more confident in their abilities, joined Ilias at the control deck. Leora extended her energy outward, creating barriers that redirected enemy fire, while Sirla monitored the attackers' movements, predicting their maneuvers with remarkable accuracy. Ilias coordinated with the palace's defenses, using the girls' insights to guide strategic responses. The attackers found themselves disoriented, their formations disrupted, and their confidence shaken. They had underestimated not only the humans' ingenuity, but also the latent powers of the queen's daughters. The queen herself took command, piloting her flagship into the fray with authority and precision. Her energy flares illuminated the battlefield, guiding allied forces and striking fear into the hearts of the enemy. The combination of human courage, alien abilities, and the queen's leadership created a synergy that the attackers could not counter. Ships were disabled, flanked, and neutralized in ways that left even seasoned commanders astonished. Ilias felt a surge of pride. Humanity's reputation for resourcefulness and determination had never been more evident. As the battle reached its peak, the attackers attempted a direct assault on the palace itself, aiming to breach the central chambers and capture the children. Ilias acted instinctively. He and the girls projected a combined energy shield, the force field extending across the palace's outer walls. Leora's energy pulses amplified Sirla's perceptive guidance, allowing them to anticipate and counter the enemy's movements. The attackers were repelled with precision, their strategy unraveling under the unexpected coordination of human and alien. In a daring move, Elias realized that the key to ending the conflict lay in striking at the command ship of the enemy fleet. The vessel was heavily armored, but its predictability in formation offered an opening. Leora extended her energy to weaken critical systems, while Sirla guided Elias through a narrow corridor of space, avoiding enemy fire with precision. With careful calculation and steady nerves, Elias approached the ship. A well-aimed strike disrupted its energy core, causing the vessel to lose power and forcing a retreat. The remaining attackers, seeing their leader defeated, disengaged and fled, leaving Thalvoria's skies clear once more. The aftermath was a mixture of relief and quiet celebration. The Queen's forces returned to their positions, and the palace's defenses were retracted. The daughters, though exhausted, stood proudly beside Elias. Their abilities had grown exponentially during the confrontation, and the experience had cemented their confidence. They had faced the galaxy's threats and prevailed, proving their courage, intelligence, and the strength of their heritage. The Queen approached them, her eyes filled with pride and emotion. "You have not only survived but thrived," she said. "Your courage has ensured the safety of our people. You are ready to embrace your destiny." Elias, standing nearby, felt a profound sense of fulfillment. He had begun the journey as a human acting out of compassion and duty, but he had become a part of something far greater. He had witnessed the power of resilience, the potential of unity across species, and the influence that courage and determination could exert in the galaxy. Humanity, he realized, had the capacity to inspire, protect, and change the course of events in ways that no one had predicted. In the days that followed, the palace shifted from a defensive posture to one of preparation and growth. The Queen initiated programs to train her daughters in leadership, diplomacy, and the careful use of their powers. Leora and Sirla embraced their roles with enthusiasm, guided by the Queen's wisdom and Elias' practical experience. They explored the palace's hidden chambers, learned the history of their civilization, and developed a deeper understanding of the responsibilities that came with their abilities. Elias continued to mentor the children, teaching them the value of strategy, observation, and ethical use of power. They practiced daily, combining lessons in leadership with exercises in focus, energy control, and anticipation. The girls' abilities expanded in subtle but significant ways. Leora could now manipulate energy flows with remarkable precision, while Sirla's perception allowed her to detect threats even before they manifested. Together, they represented a new generation of Thalvoria's leadership, strong, capable, and wise beyond their years. The Queen, observing their progress, recognized the importance of Elias' guidance. She invited him to join the council, a rare honor for a human to provide perspective and insight into interstellar relations. Elias accepted, humbled by the trust placed in him. He knew that the galaxy remained unpredictable, that threats would continue to emerge, and that the children's growth was just one piece of a larger puzzle. Yet he also knew that together, with courage, intelligence, and compassion, they could meet any challenge. Peace, though hard-earned, became the new norm. The palace flourished, and the people of Thalvoria celebrated the return of the Queen's daughters. Festivals were held in honor of their resilience and the human who had ensured their safe return. Stories spread across the planet, highlighting courage, loyalty, and the power of unity. The children, once lost and alone, now held the admiration of an entire civilization. Their names would be remembered not only for survival, but for the hope and inspiration they represented. One evening, as the twin suns set, Elias watched Leora and Sirla from a balcony overlooking the city. They laughed softly, their faces radiant with joy and confidence. The Queen stood beside him, her presence calm and reassuring. "You have given them more than safety," she said. "You have given them confidence, guidance, and the knowledge that they are not alone. For that I am eternally grateful." Elias nodded, understanding the depth of her gratitude. He had acted out of instinct and compassion, but the impact of his actions reached far beyond what he could have imagined. The night sky over Thalvoria was filled with stars, a reminder of the vastness of the galaxy and the endless possibilities it held. The children, now fully aware of their potential, looked forward to the future with determination and excitement. They had faced danger, adversity, and fear, yet they had emerged stronger and wiser. Elias, the human who had risked everything to bring them home, stood as a testament to the idea that courage, intelligence, and heart could overcome any obstacle. In the quiet that followed, the queen gathered her daughters and Elias once more. She spoke of the future, of the responsibilities that came with power, and of the importance of unity and compassion. The children listened intently, absorbing her wisdom and understanding the significance of their journey. Elias remained by their side, ready to guide, mentor, and protect, knowing that their story was only beginning. The galaxy, once indifferent or hostile, had witnessed a human and two alien children defy expectations, overcome impossible odds, and restore hope to a civilization. Thalvoria's people celebrated not only the return of the Queen's daughters, but also the lesson that courage, compassion, and determination could shape the future in profound ways. Humanity had proven its worth, and the bonds formed across species promised a new era of understanding, cooperation, and strength. As the palace lights reflected across the crystal spires, Elias looked at the children and the queen. He saw not only the triumph of the day, but the promise of tomorrow. The girls had grown into their roles, their powers refined, and their confidence unwavering. The queen's guidance, combined with Elias' mentorship, had forged a path for the next generation of leadership. The galaxy would face challenges, but with courage, intelligence, and unity, there was nothing they could not overcome. And in that moment, Elias understood the true meaning of heroism. It was not about conquest, glory, or recognition. It was about courage in the face of danger, compassion in times of despair, and the willingness to act when it mattered most. Humanity, represented in him, had shown its strength not through domination but through heart, determination, and the bond shared across worlds. The daughters of the Queen, once lost, were now a symbol of hope, resilience, and the limitless potential of the galaxy when courage and unity prevailed. The stars over Thalvoria shone brightly, reflecting in the eyes of the children and the human who had changed their destiny. Their journey, though perilous, had led to triumph. The galaxy had witnessed an extraordinary story of reunion, growth, and heroism. And as they stood together on the balcony of the palace, Elias, Leora, Syrla, and the Queen knew that the future was theirs to shape. A future filled with hope, courage, and the enduring strength of the human spirit.